Hi, and welcome to this session on retail operations. So I'm Alison and I work for White Rose Retail Consultants. I've got over 30 years of experience in retail, from UK high street brands through to international brands and travel retail, so a bit of everything, food and non-food. So this session is all about retail operations. So, retail operations, we're going to cover your ideal customer. We've covered it before, we will cover it again because it is the basis of everything that you do. Retail operations manual, your pricing policy, your refund policy, your operational rules, stock taking, banking, window displays, trading hours and days, stocking and recovery and cleaning. This isn't an exhaustive list, or rather it's a list that can be as long as your arm. Every retail business is completely different. So we'll start with your ideal customer. So who is your ideal customer? What do they expect when they come into your store? This is how you're going to deliver your best performance, by understanding who your ideal customer is and what they want from an experience. Are you delivering what they expect? And are your messages speaking to them? So get to know who your ideal customer is. We covered this in the previous session, but understand who they are, because that is the way that you're going to get the best out of your business. Who's got a retail operations manual? Does anybody have one? You should have one. If everything's up here, what happens if you get run over by a bus? Somebody can't come in and take over your business if you're indisposed, if the rules for running your business aren't noted somewhere. And if you want to expand and take on another store and you want to be consistent in the way that you operate, you need to have those rules written down. So your retail operations manual is going to include lots of different things, and as I've said, your retail operations, every store runs differently, every business runs differently, and you'll want different things in there. But some of the things that you'll want in there will be things like your store opening hours and the variations to them. You may well decide that in summer you're going to open for longer hours, in winter you're going to do shorter hours, or close on a Wednesday afternoon. What your customer service expectations are. Do you want every customer that comes through your door to be greeted? That's a really good starting point for delivering positive customer service, and we'll cover that in a separate session. But if your expectation is that every customer is greeted, that should be in your retail operations manual. What's your returns policy? What's your inventory management system? What's your loss prevention measures? What's your store maintenance procedures? Operational rules. What's your pricing policy? What's your markdown policy? What's your charity request policy? What's your purchasing policy? What's your banking procedure? What's your visual merchandising guidelines? And what are your contact numbers for the important people that you need to get in contact in certain situations? If we take a look at your pricing policy, have you got a blanket policy, or have you got a different pricing strategy for different categories? If you've got whichever one you've chosen, make sure you note it down. So if somebody's coming in to run the business in your absence and they get a delivery of stock that you've ordered 6 months ago, they know what the pricing structure is. They know how to price those products. Are you going to round everything to the nearest pound, or are you going to use 99? So is something going to be a £5, or is it going to be £4.99? Will you price every individual item with a sticker on the bottom, or with a label or a tag, or are you going to use shelf edge labels? Will you use barcodes or SKU numbers? And a SKU number is a stock count or a stock keeping unit, and it's just a way of identifying ranges of products, and it's usually made up by a number of digits that identify a department, and then a number of digits that identify a single unit. Are you going to scan your stock? If you're going to scan your stock, you'll need an EPOS system. Are you going to offer discounts, reductions, or any other pricing strategy like bundles, 3 for 2 offers, things like that? How often are you going to review your pricing? And when will you implement price changes? Are you going to implement price changes on an ad hoc basis as things change, or do you do them on the first day of the month, or do you do them every 3 months? But you need to note that down when you do price changes. Moving on to your refund policy, are you going to offer more than the statutory rights which are outlined in the Consumer Rights Act of 2015? Or are you going to offer more, a better deal for returns? Are you going to accept back non-faulty products? What time limit are you making for those returns? And is it an exchange-only policy for non-faulty items? And if you've got a policy that differs to the statutory rights, is it on display? The Trading Standards Department authority, they're a really good source of information. It's counterintuitive really, you think, trading standards only come when we've done something wrong or we're in trouble, but they're actually there to offer guidance and advice. So it's really, if you're not sure about anything, it's really worth getting in touch with them and having a chat because they're very helpful. If we look at your operational rules, this section should include any specific operational rules. And these might be things such as only 3 items in a changing room. Your damages have got to be paid for. Any customer number limits. So if you've got a very small store and you're limited by the number of people that you can have in from a safety point of view, that needs to be noted in there. It should also include statutory rules where relevant, such as age restrictions, knife restrictions, firework restrictions, and so on. And dated stock rules. What is your policy, for instance, for short life products? At what point do you reduce them? Do you reduce them, or do you just let them run out and write them off? Do you give them to a food bank? What's your policy? And how often are you going to check the stock rotation and the dates and keep a record of them? Is your shop a member of any local retail scheme? Many town centres or shopping centres have their own retail schemes that you can be part of, that you can share information with, and quite often they've got a radio scheme so that if there's anybody roaming about the town that's up to no good, you can alert other members. If you're part of that, make sure you've got it in your operations manual with your call sign. And details like where's the radio kept and how is it, the battery life on it, how do you charge it? Do you support all requests from charities and social groups and fundraisers? Do you support some of them, or do you say, no, we don't support any? Or do you say, we've got a charity of the year and that's who all our fundraising goes to? Put that down in your operations manuals. It will make it much easier for somebody else running the business to respond to requests. And do you have any specific tradespeople that you call in certain circumstances? So have you got an electrician, a plumber, any of those tradespeople that you've got an account with? Put their names and their contact numbers in there so that if there's a circumstance where you need to contact them, then whoever's running the shop on your behalf has got that information there. So let's look at stock taking. How often do you do a full stock take? Do you do a full stock take? If you don't do a full stock take, how do you know the value of your stock? And this is for insurance purposes, it's for ordering purposes, it's also to know your stock turn. So it's worthwhile doing a regular stock take. And regular might be once a year, it might be once every 6 months. It's the frequency you decide. Do you do a more frequent stock take on vulnerable stock? Things like electronics or things that are regularly stolen. And how do you record your stock and sales to ensure that your data is accurate? So when you receive products on orders, do you add them onto a system or onto an Excel? do you also record your sales at item level? What's your process? And what's your write-off procedure for damaged or stolen goods? If you know for sure that something has been broken or it's been stolen, that needs to come off your stock on hand, otherwise it will affect the valuation and it will affect lots of things. But how do you do that? What's your process? Moving on to banking, how often do you need to do your banking? We've seen recently that cash is used less and less and credit cards are used more and more. That means that you've got less money that you need to work with, that you need to hand over to the banks. So does that affect the frequency that you do your banking? Do you have collections, or do you take it to your nearest bank or post office to deposit yourself? Where do you get your change from? Do you get your change from the post office? Do you have it delivered? How much change do you get? Is there a limit to how much money you can hold on the premises for insurance purposes? This is all really important information from an insurance point of view to know and to notate down, so that people don't inadvertently break the rules and nullify any insurance. And then, have you got a petty cash fund? If you've got a petty cash fund, what are you allowed to buy out of that petty cash fund? And what's the spending limit that you're allowed to spend out of it? And how often do you reconcile it? How often do you balance the tills, and how often do you balance the petty cash and your banking to make sure that all your financial side is secure? We now look at window displays. Window displays are a curious thing because some retail stores have fabulous window displays because they've got great creative products, and then other retail outlets don't have a window display at all. So it really depends on the type of product that you're selling and also who you're selling it to. So there's the opportunity to do some fabulous displays if you're selling a lifestyle type product that is people are going to buy because it's a treat, or it's not a run-of-the-mill everyday product like milk or shampoo. You can get quite creative with stuff that's outside of those product ranges. But milk and shampoo, how do you do a creative window display using milk? You can't, because it's a food product. So are your window displays going to be changed on a regular basis? How often are they going to change? And what are they going to consist of? Are they going to be a lifestyle kind of look, or are they going to be quite a utilitarian display of your stock? So if you think about some of the shops which sell everyday low-priced items, they might have a cube or a series of cubes in the window that's got some of their products in pyramid displays in the window, and it's literally just, this is some of the products that we sell. And then to the other extent, you've got fashion and other homewares brands that are really trying to build an inspirational picture of why you should have those products in your life. And that will be a very different display to shampoo and conditioner. Are there any products that you would or should not put into your window displays? Make sure that you make a note of those in your operations manual. And also, are there any props or fixtures that you use or you don't want in there? Any rules that you've got around how you build your windows? This all needs to go into your operations manual. I once did a window in a shopping mall and made the mistake of putting fondant icing in the window, and it didn't last very long under the bright lights of the mall coming in. So just bear in mind all of this type of thing. You might want to make some specific rules about the products that you sell. Trading times. So which days of the week do you normally trade on? And what are your standard opening hours? Are there any variations to those opening hours? Do you sometimes, during summer, open on 7 days a week, but in winter you only open on 5 days a week? Any variations, get that down in your retail operations manual so that anybody running your business in your absence knows the rules. Do you have a late night shopping day? Do you have a half day on a Wednesday? It's very traditional to have half a day on a Wednesday, or it used to be back in the day. Not a lot of people do that now. But Sunday opening, do you open on a Sunday? So make sure that all of that is notated in your operations manual. One of my irritations is related to the next section, which is stocking and recovery. I get stressed when I go into a retail store and it looks untidy, because it makes me feel like if the store doesn't care about the standard of the products on display, does it care about the customer? And that might be just the way that my brain works, but recovery is really important to me, that on a regular basis throughout the day, you recover your stock, you recover the displays, and at the end of the day, you make a point of making sure the store looks as good when it closes as when it opens the following day, because it presents your products in the best possible light, and it gives the impression that, and it should give the impression that you care about the stock, therefore you care about the customer. So it's all about the psychology of the customer. So do you fill your store up? Do you stock the shelves during opening hours, or do you make it a rule to do it outside of opening hours? That goes into your operations manual. Have you got rules about how you restock? The frequency, do you prepare stuff off the floor? If you're working in fashion, do you steam your clothes and attach the tags off the floor, or do you do it on the floor? Do you price before you put it on display? And a lot of it depends on some of the choices that you've made earlier in relation to maybe pricing your products, if you're using shelf edge labels or if you're using tickets. Do you have rules about having certain products out of the box and on display so people can touch them? Having products out of the box that people can touch and play with and feel improves your sales, because people, once you get a product in somebody's hands, they're much more likely to buy it. And it enables them to envisage having that product in their life if you can get it in their hand. And if they can play about with it, they'll feel confident about buying it. And what are your recovery standards? We've already talked about the importance for me of making sure the store looks neat and tidy, and that on a regular basis throughout the day you have a tidy up, so it doesn't look like a jumble sale. It looks like you're putting some care into the way that you present your stock. And then cleaning. You might have somebody who comes in to clean your store, but more likely you're doing the cleaning yourself. So who is responsible for the cleaning in the store? You might have a window cleaner, but the rest of the cleaning is your responsibility. So how often do you hoover and mop the floor? It sounds pretty basic, but if you sell a product that requires a lot of maintenance, say for instance you've got products that have got packaging that regularly falls on the floor, you're not going to wait 2 days before you hoover the rubbish up off the floor. So make sure you get those rules down in your operations manual. How often do you strip the stock off your shelves and clean them properly? If you're tall enough, a little bit like me, you can see the top of fixtures, and so you know if somebody's cleaned because you can see the dust. And if you can see the dust, you think, well, they're not taking much care of the products, so are they going to take care of the customer? So bear in mind that there's tall people and short people. And that comes to when you're merchandising goods as well, because bear in mind that not everybody can reach that top shelf. And what are your plans for cleaning high or difficult areas? I once worked with a brand who had an amazing light fixture that was made of individual kitchen tools. But how on earth do you clean 100 kitchen tools that are suspended from a ceiling 15 foot up? That's quite a task that needs to be planned. And have you got specific cleaning equipment or supplies that you use in your store? So some people who sell cleaning supplies make a decision operationally that will be the products, they will use the products for cleaning that they sell. But if you don't sell products, then have you got a preferred cleaning solution? It might be that you only want to use eco-friendly products. So if you've got rules like that, get them in the operations manual. Finally, other things that you want to consider include if your shop is in a centre or a mall, have they got rules that they impose that need to be followed? Some shopping centres have got all sorts of crazy rules that you've got to do this, that and the other. So bear in mind that they need to be in the manual as well, because even if you're not operating your business, the person that's operating it in your absence needs to be aware of those rules. Are there any statutory tasks and checks that need to be made? If so, get them in the manual. Location of your first aid kit and how often you check the replenishment of your plasters, etc. How and where to store your delivery notes. And where your instruction manuals for your tills and your fire alarm or your burglar alarm, or where the key to the back door is, anything like that, get it in your manual. But your manual is unique, so Shop A's manual will be completely different to Shop B's manual because the way of operating it is different. But your manual is not designed to contain sensitive information. So don't put passwords in there. Don't put stuff like that. This is stuff that somebody operating your store can pick up, access, and start working within the rules. It should contain anything that's relevant to running the store. It needs to be accessible, it needs to be updated, and you need to use it. That's the most important one. So, if you've got any questions on retail operations, please either email them to alison.laws@ynywgrowthhub.com. Thank you.